Before I get into this video, I just want to say real quick, if the lighting looks a little bit different, sorry, but the light bulb in my basement went out and I had to replace it with this new extremely bright one, so things might look a little different. Don't be startled, it's just a new light bulb. Anyway, welcome back to 10 Years Later, the series that I do to talk about albums from the 2010s that were either impactful to music, impactful to me, or just worth revisiting, be it for good or bad reasons. And oh boy, we've got a fun one here. As you can tell from the title, today we are going to be talking about the 2010 Justin Bieber album, My World 2.0. Justin Bieber, we know who he is today. He's one of the biggest music stars in the world, one of the biggest forces in pop music in the past decade. I actually just recently reviewed the new album from him, Changes, which you can check out my thoughts on it at the link in the description, but I wasn't totally in love with it. Either way, many of us know who Justin Bieber is now, worldwide known superstar with a bevy of huge singles and albums under his belt. In 2010 though, before he was that superstar, he was just yet another teen heartthrob vying for the world's attention, hoping to get the excitement from all the middle and high school aged girls of the time. And trust me, when I was in middle school, he most certainly got the love from all the middle school girls. They wanted to marry him. This, of course, was his debut studio album, yet while he was gaining popularity with his music at this time, unfortunately, like many a child star then and now, Bieber was the target of much scorn across the internet, and he still very much is. In fact, the music video for Baby, the big single from this album, is still the second most disliked YouTube video of all time. It used to be #1, but then YouTube Rewind 2018 happened, and obviously that took the mantle. But as much as people hated Baby, I couldn't really bring myself to do the same. Sure, it's kind of annoying, the hook is not very good, Bieber's vocals are a bit amateurish, and it sounds exactly how you would imagine a teen pop song to sound, well, outside of the surprising inclusion of Ludacris, whose verse I remember a number of guys in my middle school rapping. But honestly, I can't find it in me to hate this song. As overplayed as it was, it kind of just feels innocuous and neither good or bad enough to merit special note. Surprisingly, before going back into this album, I actually enjoyed the track Eeny Meeny with Sean Kingston, a name that just screams late 2000s and early 2010s when you hear it. And yeah, the song is a bit goofy, the hook is kind of bizarre, but it's stupidly catchy and I honestly like it more than I should. So I didn't hate Baby, and I actually like Eeny Meeny, and this album as a whole is just 10 tracks and 37 minutes, so it wasn't going to take up too much of my time. Does not hating Baby and enjoying Eeny Meeny mean that the rest of the album is good? Surprisingly, it kind of is. I feel surprised every time I have to say that, but My World 2.0 is actually not nearly as bad as the internet might want you to believe. Obviously, it might be easy to hate on Bieber, and given some of his music, especially recently with Yummy, he is a bit of an easy target, but this album isn't too bad. There are quite a few tracks on here that I really like. Somebody to Love is actually a very catchy, well-performed track that I can imagine still working today. Surprisingly, the song doesn't feel like it's a product of 2010, and I can honestly see it being a track that Bieber could do a good remake or remaster of. Obviously, his vocals have grown a lot since this song, and I can see it sounding pretty good coming from an older sounding Bieber. Honestly, I'd take it over quite a few of the tracks on Changes. Same goes for Stuck in the Moment. It's a lighter track, and yeah, given Bieber's vocal experience, he does sound like he's really trying to hit some of those high notes. But again, it's a pretty sweet track that I'm surprised doesn't feel like just a product of its time. And I was also initially a bit torn on Never Let You Go, as I heard a live acoustic version of the song and very much liked it, to the point where I wasn't sure I'd be crazy about the production on the original song. But the vocal melodies are just as catchy as they were when I heard it live, and the song works to my everlasting surprise. Overboard is a track that definitely feels like plenty of 2000s R&B songs that I have heard, but I was very pleasantly surprised by how catchy it is. It's one of the few tracks on here with a feature, and Jessica Jarrell vocally shines on it, and even if I think she kind of takes the spotlight, Bieber and her work very well together, even though it feels like Justin's producers were trying way too hard to process his voice. Up also has one of the record's more emotional and spacey beats, but it's easily one of the best instrumentals on the album, and I think Bieber fits right at home on it. I will say, of course, that there are some tracks I'm not very into. For example, You Smile is Bieber's chance to try a slow jam, and the chorus isn't too bad, but vocally some of his runs just kind of feel out of place, and it just doesn't sound like he's quite ready to sing over this kind of instrumental. Also, Runaway Love is a bit of a dud too. The song has this slow kind of throbbing beat that I think is a bit too heavy for Justin, and while the hook isn't bad, some of these slightly higher register vocals feel a bit lackluster, making this a song that blends a bit into the rest. I was also a bit torn on the closer to the album, That Should should be me. Bieber's vocals are very good here, well, except for when they're thrown through the processing ringer, and the emotional feel of the song is definitely present in his lyrics, but I think the instrumental just feels a bit too heavy to the point where it kills the mood a bit. Even so, it is a potent attempt at closing the album, even if the production doesn't support Bieber's vocals as well as it should. Overall, why did I enjoy this thing more than I thought I would? There is no way I had thought, and as it turns out, there is a way. As much as I expected this album to be a dated, amateurish relic of 2010, a number of the songs on here actually are still pretty good listens today. No, Bieber was not vocally who he is today, and while there are some emotional cuts on this album, I don't think they hit as hard as tracks like Mark My Words or Changes, but this is still a pretty valiant effort. A number of the instrumentals still feel like they'd fit if they were released today, and as much as Bieber has matured vocally, that's not to say he sounds bad here. In fact, I think he actually sounds pretty good. Sure, the record isn't the most consistent thing ever, and some of the tracks may not hold up as well, but it's still a surprisingly good listen, and I think it's a bit better than you might want to believe. My favorite tracks on here were Somebody to Love, Stuck in the Moment, Never Let You Go, Overboard, Eeny, Meeny, and Up, and my least favorite track would be Runaway Love. All in all, looking back at 2010, my then 11-year-old self would have never wanted to admit that he liked Justin Bieber. At the time, being a guy in middle school, he was the easiest target we could get, and none of us really liked him. So naturally, I wouldn't have wanted to admit it. But 10 years later, I can honestly say this isn't a bad album. I actually quite enjoyed it. Enough that if this were a full-blown review, I would have given it a good rating. Honestly, it's pretty solid, as much as it's easy to rag on. But that is just my opinion on this album. What did you guys think about it? Did you listen to it a lot back in 2010? Did you love it then, hate it then? Do you love it now, hate it now? What are your experiences with this album, dating all the way back to when it came out in 2010? Let's just have a conversation. Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Let's keep this civil and have some fun as we'd like to do. If you guys want to hit like and subscribe, thank you, but if not, it's totally okay, I understand. As for what's next in the series, I can't believe I didn't mention that Justin Bieber's mentor was Usher, because the next album I'm planning to look at is Usher's 2010 album, Raymond vs. Raymond. Hopefully that'll be fun. Stay tuned for that. And until then, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.